Hey guys, Mr. Bowman here. Today's learning objective is in white and we are learning to factorize algebraic expressions. Keyword for today, factorize, and that's going to be the opposite to expanding. So when we have an expression with brackets and we go to no brackets, that is expanding, and that's something we looked at in the previous video. Today we're learning to go in the other direction. We're learning to start with no brackets and we're trying to add the brackets back. And that there is called factorizing. And why it's called factorizing is because we need to look for common factors to be able to pull out outside the bracket, and then we leave everything else inside the bracket. So that's the approach that I want us to start thinking about. First step we need to do is we always need to identify the highest common factor. So just to recap, so let's say you've got 27 and 9. We know that 27 is 1 times 27. It's also 3 times 9. And then 9 is just 1 times 9, and then 3 times 3. So of all of these numbers, we know that they've got a 1 in common. We know they've got a 3 in common, but the highest of them all is that 9. So that highest common factor would have been equal to 9 for that. So when we look at our questions, we need to identify what the highest common factor is. Maybe they've got other common factors in terms of their letters, and we need to be able to pull all of those terms out. So if we link that to our algebra, highest common factor again. So this time around, let's say we've got 10xy and 8x. So we start off with the numbers. Like, what do they have in common? That's 1 times 10, 2 times 5. That there is 1 times 8, 2 times 4. So the highest common factor in terms of the number is going to be 2, but we can see they've also got an x in common. So that means the highest common factor that we need to take out is going to be 2, and the x that they have in common. And then last question, let's try a harder version, highest common factor again. So let's say we've got -30 a squared b cubed c, and we've got 10a b squared c. So we've got to think what numbers multiply to -30. So we've got -1 and 30. We've got the other way around, 1 and -30. We've got 2 and -15, -2 and +15, 3 and -10, -3 and 10, and then we've also got -6, +5, +6, -5. So there's so many factors for those, and we've got the same here for the next expression. We're going to need to do that again. We've got, this time around it's positive, so there won't be as many. So we've got 1 and 10, 2 and 5, and of both of these lists, we can see that 5 is the highest common number. Oh, apologies, I've completely missed 10. 10 down there is the highest common number. We then have a look at the letters. We've got two A's here and one A here. So when you think of the A's, the highest amount they have in common is just 1A. So we've got 10A. You then have a look at the B's. They've got b cubed and b squared, so they've got 2 b's in common. And then when you have a look at the c's, they've both got a c in common as well. So that means 10a squared, ab squared c is the highest common factor for those expressions. So that was just the start of the video. Now let's get into the actual factorizing, just to see, so you can see how this is applied. So example 1, we'll start easy and then we'll move difficult. So we've got 8x minus 12. So we're going to start by looking at the 8 and the 12, because we can see there's no letters in common because the -12 doesn't have any letters. And here that 8's got it's a 1 and 8, and it's a 2 and 4. And then that 12 is 1 and, I wrote 12, sorry, I wrote 8, but that's meant to be 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So that means 4 is the highest common factor. So we're going to take out a 4, and what goes in these leftover positions are what's left over. So if we go 8x divided by 4, we're left with 2x. And if we go 12 divided by 4, we're left with 3. So that's going to be minus 3. And we use the minus sign because of the minus sign given to us in the original expression. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully in time, that step I've just circled, the step of dividing by the factor you've taken out, hopefully you just won't need to do that, and you'll be able to do that in your head. So example number 2, we'll try a bit more complicated. So let's say we've got 25x squared y, and we're going to add 10xy to that. So first step, we need to identify what they have in common. And by looking at the 5, 25, and the 10, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a 5. So I'm going to write equals. I'm going to take out the 5. I'm then going to have a look at the x's. I can see that they have 1x in common. And if I look at the y's, they've got a y in common. I'm then going to put all the leftover bits on the next. So how can I go from the 5 to the 25? That's going to be timesing by 5. And then if you have a look at the letters, there were 2 x's. I've already taken one of them, which means there's one left. And that y, I've already taken it out, so there's nothing left there. And if you expand this, we've got 5 times 5 gets us to 25. X times x gets us to x squared. And we have a y that gets us to the other y. And then we do the same for the next one. So we're going to use a plus sign because that's what we had. And how can we get from the 5 to the 10? That's going to be a times 2. And we can already see the x has been taken out and the y has been taken out. So there's nothing extra for us to do. So both of those are gone. So that means our factorized version would have been 5xy, and then in brackets, 5x plus 2. And you can check your working. If you expand, your answer should match the original question up the top. So let's have a look at another one. Example 3. So we'll do 2 more. So let's say we've got negative 4ab squared minus 8ab. Or actually, let's just go minus 8b. So we need to check, what do these have in common? So the first thing I want to note, we haven't talked about an example like this. They both have a negative sign in common. So I want to take out that negative sign to start off with. We then look at the numbers, 4 and 8. I'd bet a lot of money that 4 would be that common factor. We then have a look at the letters. There's no A on the other side, which means we can't take out that A. They do have B's in common. And we'll take out 1B. And we can only take out 1B because that right-hand side doesn't have 2 B's. We're then going to put in brackets what's left over. So we've taken out the minus sign, taken out the 4, we've taken out a B. So we're left with an A. And we're left with the second B, because we've only taken those. We then have a look at the second part. So we're going to add in our sign. And I just want to note, we're putting in a plus sign this time, because a reminder, we've already taken out the negative sign. So we're going to put a plus sign, and that makes sense because when you go negative times a positive, that's going to be a negative number, which is what we're looking for over here. And if you have a look at what we've done, so we've taken out the B already, so we don't have to worry about that. But how can we get from the 4 to the 8? We're going to multiply that by 2. So that's going to be 2 there. And you can check again, that times that is negative 4ab squared, which is what we have here. And that times that is negative 8b, which is what we have up here. Okay, and our final example, we'll make it a hard one. So let's do 36 x cubed y 4z6, and we are minusing 18 x squared y 5z6. So I'll just put a little line there to emphasize those z's. So first step, they don't really have a negative sign in common, so we'll leave that there. We then look at the numbers. What's the highest factor that those two have in common? And that's going to be 18. We then have a look at the letters. We've got 2x's and 3x's, so that means they've got 2 in common. We then look at the y's, 4 y's and 5 y's. So they've actually got 4 y's in common, which is quite a few. And then they've got 6 z's in common. So we're taking out all of those. We then need to put that in a bracket, so I might have to work down the screen if I run out of room. So we've got to figure out what has been left over. So how can we get from the 18 to the 36? We're going to have to times that by 2. How can we go from the x squared to the x? We're going to add in an extra x to make that even. The y4 is unchanged, and the z6 is unchanged as well. So that means we don't have to do anything extra for that one there. We're then going to put down our minus sign, and we're going to repeat the same. So how can we go from 18 to 18? So that's times 1, so we don't have to worry about that. How can we go from x squared to x squared? Same thing, nothing to worry about there. How do we go from y4 to y5? We're going to add in an extra y. And how do we go from z6 to z6? Nothing is needed for that as well. So we're going to close our bracket because we've got everything. And again, we can check our answer by expanding. So that will become 18 times 2 is 36. X squared times x, we've got 3 x's, y4, and z6. So we know the first half is right. And then we can do the same for the end. So we've got 18 times negative 1 is negative 18. And then we've got 2x's, 4y times y, and then the 6z's at the end. So we're all happy with that. So guys, this video quickly went through how to factorize single bracket expressions. So there's a whole lot to factorizing, and there are going to be some weird little questions out there that you will need help with. So don't be afraid. Whoever your teacher is, whoever you've got next door to you, ask them for help for any questions that you are stuck on. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Let's get into heaps and heaps of practice now.